Kingsbury, Natalie attired three-piece suit, about to accept the job as the new head coach of the Cardinals. Freddie Kitchens is your new head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Bruce Arians is your new head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, of course, we mentioned that the Green Bay Packers made a hire going back, what was it? It was like 2 days ago with Matt LaFleur? 2 days ago or so with Matt LaFleur. And we've heard a lot about, well, it's the, do you know Sean McVay, right? Do you know Sean McVay? If you do, you're hired. Do you know Kyle Shanahan? If you do, you're hired. It's amazing to me, the pushback we've seen on Kingsbury, for example. Here's what's funny about it. Cliff Kingsbury had a below 500 percentage as a head coach at Texas Tech, right? And so people are smartly and wisely pointing to that. If Nick Saban was hired as your head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, what would people be saying today? Oh, Saban sucked with the Dolphins, right? He's bad with the Dolphins. But they might say, hey, had they signed Drew Brees like they wanted to and the doctors told him his shoulder, maybe then Saban would have made it. Now, I explained to people yesterday, and not everybody catches the entire show, so let me re-explain something. I consider Brad Stevens a friend, and I think we would all consider Brad Stevens a great coach. And Brad Stevens hasn't said this specifically, but he's insinuated this to people that I know, and I've heard it from a bunch of other guys who coach in the pros that used to coach in college. And you ask them, would they go back to coaching in college after coaching in the pros? And they will tell you, hell no. And look, in basketball as in football, the great thing about basketball is if you run a play in the NBA and the guy gets open, 9 times in 10, they make it. Do you know why? Because they're the best basketball players in the world. So there is a certain amount of it's one thing to drop a play in the dirt. It's a completely other thing to have you drop a play in the dirt, have it work, and have the ball go through the hoop. That's rewarding. But the number one reason that pro guys don't want to go back to college is because in the pros, you're coaching ball. In the college, part of what you do is coach ball. You worry about academics. You worry about recruiting. You worry about parents. You worry about your staff. You worry about your training staff. I mean, look, DJ Durkin got fired at Maryland because he fostered a culture that was seen as, by some, abusive because a kid died during a conditioning drill during a 80-degree day. You got to worry about your training staff, your strength staff. You got to worry about your tutors and everybody kind of working together. You got to worry about Title IX. You got to worry about Title IX? Yeah, that's right. If there's a dispute between a young man and a young woman on campus, you have to concern yourself with it, although you're not actually allowed to investigate it. You have to turn it over to the Title IX investigation. You don't just work for your athletic director. You work for the president, and if you're in a state school, you work for the state and all the donors. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Yeah. And here's the other part. They don't actually care about all that other stuff unless something goes wrong, and then they want you to win more than the guy before. When you're coaching in the National Football League, it's about ball. Don't believe me? Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was convicted of murder while playing for the New England Patriots. Murder. And accused and found innocent of a previous double homicide, which, if you follow the court case, probably did it. The fact that he walked is really amazing, but he was convicted of murder. Did anyone call into question? There's been a couple people like, hey, Bill Belichick, did he lose any credibility? Of course not, because that's not his job. When you're coaching the NFL, it's about winning football games, right? When Jason Garrett had Ezekiel Elliott suspended for 6 games, did anybody say, hey, it's Jason Garrett's fault? Like, no. Well, did he foster him? No, because when you coach in the NFL, it's about coaching ball. It ain't about all that other stuff. And what's made Nick Saban unbelievable, what's made Roy Williams unbelievable, and Mike Krzyzewski unbelievable, what's made those guys the best is they're great recruiters. They're great organizers. They're great leaders. They understand how to solve problems, put the people in proper places, have the right protocol where, though they have to manage and oversee, they can still coach, but also have the best programs. It's a different job because you're not just coaching ball. And so to the people who are the naysayers about Cliff Kingsbury, that's fine. It's fair. But you aren't at a recruiting imbalance in Arizona like you were at Texas Tech and compared to the rest of the Big 12 and, against the SEC. Like, look, all of these idiots who say they cover sports, they have no idea about the massive change at Texas Tech between the time that Mike Leach was there and Cliff Kingsbury was there. Here's what you don't know, okay? Here's what you don't know. When Mike Leach was there, Texas A&M was in the Big 12. When they left and went to the SEC, it totally changed things in terms of recruiting. A&M suddenly became a destination. A destination. Additionally, it allowed SEC schools to play yearly in the state of Texas, and it hurt the entire state's recruiting to maintain kids in the Big 12. Because the argument for the Big 12 was, hey, if you want to play Big 12 football, you want to play big-time college football in the state of Texas, you got to play for a Big 12 school. And when A&M left and went to the SEC, there's a massive sea change because they couldn't make that argument anymore. It also allowed TCU to rise to prominence. And Baylor had things rolling until recently. That job changed dramatically and became a lot harder. And, oh yeah, by the way, you're not just coaching football at Texas Tech like he'll be coaching football at the Cardinals. That doesn't mean he'll be successful. It just means you're evaluating him on his performance on something that's completely different than how he's going to have to perform when he becomes to the NFL. That's reality. And other people are speaking from a position of a lack of education on what he was up against and what he has to do now. Which brings me to the other false narrative of the day. Well, it's about Sean McVay, and it's about good-looking coaches. Is Freddie Kitchens a catch? Well, it's about young guys and innovative offensive minds. Is Bruce Arians young? Listen, we just had a group of, and only one young quarterback actually won a game last weekend. We just had a group of incredibly young quarterbacks from Deshaun Watson. We'll have Pat Mahomes, who's in his second year. Baker Mayfield nearly made the playoffs. Lamar Jackson was able to help take the Ravens to the playoffs. Mitch Trubisky, in his second year, just got ousted from the playoffs. Like, go around the league. Carson Wentz would have taken the Eagles to the playoffs last year, and of course would have taken them this year had he not been hurt. Still could play at any time. Jared Goff's the quarterback. Like, look, pay attention to the NFL. It's about the young quarterback and can you get him to achieve his potential. If you can do that, your team will win and you will stay employed, and that's what people want to watch. And you have to find the specific fit for your guy. I don't know how good Matt LaFleur's resume is because they weren't great with the Tennessee Titans. But the idea of a guy who's been with Shanahan, been with McVay, worked with Mariota, played himself in the Arena League, understands the various concepts of it, and is close to the same age or a similar age and a similar mindset of Aaron Rodgers. All they're trying to do in Green Bay is, hey, we'll hire a guy and your job is lead a team, be a guy that people can get behind, and communicate and effectively and get the most out of your quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury, really smart guy, former NFL quarterback, former college guy who's worked with some of the best and played in the league. Can he walk in with swag to lead the team? And can he communicate with his quarterback and put Josh Rosen in position to succeed? Bruce Arians. Why is that a great hire? Because Bruce Arians was the one who fixed Ben Roethlisberger when Ben Roethlisberger was a mess off the field and on the field. And do you know who everyone has always said that Jameis Winston reminds them of as a player? Ben Roethlisberger. Holds the ball too long, big body, can play after contact, tries to make plays down the field, and sometimes that leads to sacks or interceptions, right? Freddie Kitchens figured out how to communicate with Baker Mayfield. They're on the same wavelength. They like each other. And the feeling is that if you can't get Lincoln Riley, you get this guy because they already have a relationship. They'll work together. We'll figure the rest out. Of course, Greg Williams has a far better resume than Freddie Kitchens. It has nothing to do with resume. It has to do with one position and one position only. Doesn't mean they'll all work, but that's the logic behind it. And yeah, there is a certain McVay. Why? Because Jared Goff looked like a bust playing for an old school conservative defensive-minded coach in Jeff Fisher. Hire a guy who can communicate with him, put him in a position to succeed, and how have the Rams done the past 2 years? He hasn't picked up a pen in a defensive film room at all. Not one time. That's not what he's hired to do. Even the Fangio hire with the Denver Broncos. You're like, well, he's a defensive guy, Doug. Yes, but the Fangio hire, he's just brought in to do the defense because they got Kubiak, who's basically the head coach of the offense, who's a former quarterback who communicate with the quarterback. All of these hires are the same, but they don't have to do with McVay or how young they are or how good looking they are.